Dave, we talk about engagement on the show an awful lot. We talk about engagement and how important it is to social media and how it affects your website and newsletters. And I was just wondering, could you take one more story about engagement today?
One more story? Sure, I can take one more story about engagement, yes.
One just came in from our Patreon backer over at patreon.com/ComicLab, and it goes like this. A while back, when you were encouraging listeners to try Blue Sky as a way to engage new readers, I was hesitant to join another social platform, but reluctantly joined. Though I didn't gather very much in the way of followers, I did find another cartoonist whose work I admired. That led to conversation, which eventually led to dating, and recently led us to getting engaged.
Oh my God, really? Engaged?
Yes. So we have been responsible for getting two people together in a loving, committed relationship, and I couldn't be happier about it.
That's, Brad, we started this podcast just to share what we knew about drawing comics.
Yeah.
And the fact that we might have had a tiny little hand in making two lives come together for the rest of their lives. That's amazing. Good on you, reader and listener. That's fantastic. I'm so excited.
A little hat tip to the clever writing involved there, because if you remember in that lead, he said, or this person said, a while back when you were encouraging listeners to try Blue Sky as a way to engage new readers. It was a little foreshadowing there.
Well done.
Really appreciate the way this person did it. TJ is writing in, and thank you so much. Keep us posted how things are going. If you need two people to officiate your wedding, Dave and I are always ready for weddings, bar mitzvahs, and other happy occasions.
That's right. Especially if the wedding happens to be in Tahiti or Bora Bora or Hawaii. Please do drop Brad and I a line. We'd be happy to officiate. I got to tell you, if you haven't seen Brad in Hawaiian shorts, the gams are amazing. They'll be distracting to your wedding guests, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Let me tell you.
Last time anybody's seen legs like this, they were in a bucket.
But honestly, genuine congratulations from Brad and I. That's amazing. This is a first for us, a first for me. I don't know that no. Actually, I suppose I have had a hand in some people finding their, but not on the podcast. This is amazing. I am through the moon delighted. We've had a hand, Brad, on the podcast of helping people get some landing syndication or publishing or finding the right book printer or getting a creative partner. But Brad, we've never had someone finding their romantic partner through the show.
The important things in life.
Yeah, the important things of life. This is fantastic. So congratulations, genuine congratulations from Brad Geiger and I. That is amazing. And on that note, I'm going to say with a full heart, hello, everybody, and welcome to ComicLab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his very heart-warmed friend, Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/ComicLab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. And I honestly, not only do we going to talk comics, do we have any advice for this person, Brad, as they go off into their new exciting life?
It's funny you mentioned that, because the rest of the note says this. I thought I would ask if you have any advice on our upcoming studio merger and collaborations. And Dave, you want to be the one to tell this happy couple, or shall I?
Well, if I get where you're going with this, I think I know where you're headed. I think both Brad and I in the past have argued, and I don't know if argued's the right word, but maybe suggested that it might not be to the vast majority of people's benefits to work creatively with your romantic and life partner. That sometimes that's worth keeping separate, because both emotions and productivity and all sorts of ego things are wrapped up in the projects that you pursue creatively. Now, I would say that knowing full well that the Folios and the, what are their names? The Pinnies from the Elf Quest from
Wendy
the 70s.
Penny,
Was it
yep.
Pinny? I've never actually said it out loud. I know that they worked creatively and it worked lovely for them and does work lovely for the Folios. But I think, and again, not for everyone, but for most people, I would keep my romantic and my creative projects separate.
Yeah, I would go even further, and I would advise you not to do any kind of collaboration. If you want to share a studio or share studio space, be working in the same area together, where you can lean over and say to your partner, "Oh, that looks really good." Or that partner can look over to you and give you happy, upbeat feedback. Or, hey, what am I missing here on this page? That kind of stuff. That's great. But to collaborate where you're going to inevitably have creative differences and two different ways of seeing things, it's a lot to put on a young relationship. And if this relationship's only been going on for as long as there's been blue sky, probably you're still very much in the opening days of what is hopefully going to be decades and decades of living and loving together. So I would stay away from that collaboration for a good long time until you're in a very, very different place.
But you know what might be fun, Brad, because I don't know that we've ever done this on the show. Oh, we did it once a long time ago. Let's give them one piece of relationship advice each. What do you think?
Relationship advice. Okay, you go first.
I've got one piece, and this comes from my beautiful, amazing wife, who, thank God I married her. She is by far the best thing in my life to ever happen to me. And she had this wonderful way of structuring the communication around our marriage that I will pass along to you, my friend, because I have found it very handy. And that is a simple phraseology, a simple delineation between when something is a relationship issue and when we specifically say out loud, no, this is a roommate issue. Because any couple that spends any amount of time together, you will eventually have a roommate issue of like, I don't like the way that you load the dishwasher. I don't appreciate that you don't help out when we have to do the bills at the end of the month. I don't appreciate when the way you do or do not take out the trash or leave your laundry on the floor. That's not a relationship issue. That's a roommate issue. And so my wife and I literally say the words out loud so that we know, like, I love you. This is not about how in any way I think higher or lower of you. This is a roommate issue. Do you mind putting your socks over there because they smell like a wet horse? And then I say, yes, of course. I'm happy to put my socks over there. You know what I mean, Brad? It's really nice but you have to say the words out loud because it's worth saying to someone, this is not in any way a judgment on you or us together. This is a judgment just on our living relationship as two organic beings sharing a physical space. What advice do you have, Brad?
Trust and communication. Saying that a relationship is built on communication is kind of like, okay, you've heard that 110 times. But by the time that Carolyn and I were ready to have kids, we had talked about kid-related issues ad nauseum, what we thought about parenting or what we hoped our approach to parenting would be. It was not stuff that came up all of a sudden now that the kid was here. It was kind of like we had talked about these things and found where we had to compromise, found where we had to agree, found certain places where it was like, one of us had to come around to the other's point of view. Same thing goes for how you spend money. What your career aspirations are, stuff like that. So communication, having those conversations before you actually have kids or do some of those other big life moments is really important. And then trust. Have the trust to let your partner make decisions that they're best at. And I see this happen all the time. I tell Carolyn all the time, there are certain decisions that I kind of don't really care. It's just like, make the decision and I will go along. I'm happy not to make the decision. And it's something that she maybe cares very passionately about. And I'm like, good, let's do that. And I've seen so many cases of other couples where they fight over these things. And I can tell that one of the two people fighting really don't care about it. They just want to be involved. They don't want to not have control over the decision. And
right.
It takes a little bit of trust takes a little bit of faith, but sometimes you got to say, you know what, make this decision and not with, I'm going to be ready to say, I told you so later if it doesn't turn out, but say, you know what, I trust you. You're the best person to make this decision. Go nuts. And then be prepared to back that person up all the way when they make that decision.
Yes. Yeah. I love that advice. And Glow and I have the similar thing where passionate opinion wins. So
yeah.
if I'm milquetoast on which soap we should buy, but Glow is passionate about what soap we should buy, you know who we both decide gets to win on that one? The person with the passion. It's a great way to do it. And so, yes, I 100% agree with Brad on that. But again, from both Brad and I, best of luck on many decades of wonderful life ahead of you. And that is delightful. And congratulations. And Bradley, leading from one of the best things to happen in life to one of the worst things, I'm going to transition us over to our first question over at patreon.com/ComicLab. And it says, Brad and Dave, what are the worst bits of being a webcomic creator? Not to drag it down, but as it's part of the gig, no one gets away from it type of thing. Yeah. Brad, what is the worst part to you of webcomics?
So I had a little bit of time to think about this question, and I started writing down some ideas. And after I got through a few, I noticed a pattern here. So I'm going to share them. And at the end, I want to tell you what the pattern is, because it really opened my eyes when I started working on this.
Is every part of the pattern Dave Kellett? Is that what we're going to get to? Is that the joke?
It all comes back to you. it all comes back to you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is a roommate issue, but it's something that I hope you work on.
Well done.
But listen, here's the first part. In a webcomic, you're always your own boss. That's what brought Dave and I to the table. We are the type of people, we have to be our own boss. We were really bristling under taking direction from other people. That's great, right? We love being our own boss. We set our own hours. We set our own schedule. And as I've said to family members 110 times, it's really great that I'm my own boss. Here's the only problem. I work for a real jerk. Because I don't, my boss doesn't necessarily give me weekends off. My boss doesn't necessarily let me knock off early on a holiday. And as great as it is to make your own schedule and so forth, the downside is nobody's going to come to rescue you from bad planning, burnout, procrastination, a bad business decision. Freedom is great, but on the other side of freedom is responsibility. And sometimes that's not so fun.
No, it's I mean, I love being my own boss, to echo what Brad said. I trust myself more than I trust 99.9% of the average potential bosses I would have. Yeah. I like what I do. I like the path that I set out. But the downside being is there's no one coming to save me but me when there is a problem. There's no one that ultimately I can turn to if things fall apart, I guess is another way of saying it, in a crisis or in just day-to-day business operations. So if there's a thing that needs to be learned, I have to learn it. If there's a problem that has to pop up, I have to fix it. If a fire takes off, I've got to put it out. Yeah. And so if it all falls on me in the same way that it all falls on Brad. And ultimately, and it's made even worse by the fact that I have a full-time employee. So there's this low-level back of mind guilt/stress of like, I've got to make another salary or else I've let two people down. You know what I mean? Yes. And so there's that. But ultimately, these are not hugely dissimilar from all the other responsibilities that any other adult has in some respects. Yeah. So like, as much as I could have a pity party and Brad could have a pity party, this is true for people that have corporate jobs, government jobs, municipal jobs. Ultimately, you are responsible for maintaining your own quality of work such that you don't get canned. And ultimately, in this way, think, Brad, of all the corporate jobs where you're doing a wonderful job, but you get fired for no reason that has anything to do with you. Right. That stress is removed. So I want to counterbalance what the stress that Brad and I are making clear. that's real, but there's a lot of stresses that don't exist for us, such as unjust firings or a boss that wants to get rid of you for no reason related to whatever your efforts are at work. An overall industry that's falling apart that has nothing to do with your work habits. There's a whole bunch of reasons why people could get fired from a job. Those don't exist for us. Right. However, we are ultimately responsible for all the hats that have to be worn for our webcomic job. Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Here's another one that came up. We always talk about the importance of consistency in this job. Consistency is very, very important. Problem is, creativity is not always consistent.
Oh, boy, right? It sure isn't.
Sometimes, and I say this as somebody right now who's having a hard time pronouncing the word consistent, and because I've got a chest cold that is just beating me up right now. And sometimes you're tired or just uninspired, feeling a little burnt out or just creatively empty. And one of the hardest parts of doing this is learning how to build systems that support consistency until creativity kicks back in.
What a great way to say it. Right? System that supports consistency until creativity kicks back in. Yeah. Brad, that was so concisely put. Sorry, I'm just excited about that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's great to say. It's a wonderful sentence. It's great rhetoric.
Sounds real good. Yeah, you're
difficult to do. Difficult to
build. Yeah, difficult to build.
So that's also something that's a little bit, difficult about this job that we do. And also, tell me if this sounds familiar. You can be very successful, and I think you and I have achieved a certain amount of success, and completely insecure at the same time.
Oh, boy.
Right?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
I've always said Evil Ink and Evil Ink After Dark readers are my ride or die readers. They're super loyal and supportive, and I can still get every now and again a email that's not so friendly, feedback that isn't so friendly, and that can make you feel very insecure. Also, just the whole idea of great, and we've said this 100 times on the show. I had another good year this year, fantastic. I have no idea whether I'll be able to do it again next year. Right? You don't know. Yeah. Like I've been a full-time cartoonist for over 10 years, and there's not that means I make the full part of my income is through comics. And no, my wife isn't a trust fund baby, and there's not those kind of hidden little caveats. But I've achieved a certain amount of financial stability, a certain amount of success. But do I know I'm going to be able to keep that up next year and the year after that? No, there's absolutely nothing that guarantees that. That leads to an awful lot of insecurity. It leads to a lot of mirror gazing. It leads to a lot of mental stagnation. Because it's like sometimes you get so worried about something, you can't move on to the creative part because you're still worried. Oh, my Patreon ticked down last month. Is this the beginning of the end?
Is this the beginning of the end? Yeah.
Do you feel that way too?
Yeah, I know it's 100%, and it has a way of leaching into your creative heart. Yeah. In a way that, and maybe people in Marvel and DC and syndication and YA scholastic novels, maybe they have that too, but it's on a different time scale, I would think, though. So by that, I mean, you and I have an immediacy to our numbers in a way that people in publishing don't have. So I think for them, it actually comes in a time delay and as a bigger shock, whereas you and I are constantly with our finger on the pulse. Yeah. And so you know really quickly, did a storyline work? Did a book launch go well? Yep. Did a new website design go up in flames? Did a new character introduction work or not work? We know sometimes within hours, never mind days, whereas people in traditional publishing, sometimes that time delay is months, if not years, depending on how long your YA book took to publish. So yes, the short version is yes, I have those fears, Brad, and yes, they're very real.
And then here's another thing that is a little bit troublesome about doing what we do, and that is the business side never goes away.
No.
And part of why we've been able to survive is that you and I and people like us have really embraced the business side of comics. And I will argue across the board, whether you're working for Marvel or DC, or whether you're Dave Kellett, or whether you're syndicated or what, business has always been a part of comics. And the people that ignore that are the ones that got screwed the most. Right. It's always been a part of it. No matter who you are, you had to at least pay attention. You couldn't be that guy that says, I don't want to know about the business. I just want to draw pictures and write stories. That person is getting screwed. Right. And they got screwed this year, and they got screwed 10 years ago, and they got screwed back in the 70s. Business part, we love the business part, right?
Yes.
But it never goes away. It never goes away. I spent a bunch of time filing and paying my sales tax yesterday. I did not want to be doing that. Email marketing, Patreon strategy, file management. We spent a bunch of time talking about file management, keeping on top of platform changes, keeping on top of all of these different things that we've got to do. So there are some days, some weeks that I spend 75 to 80% of my time on administration stuff, business stuff, right? Sometimes that's no fun. Sometimes I'd love to say, well, I just want to draw my comic.
Yes,
but I can't.
Of course.
But I can't.
Of course. And so a lot of people look at Brad and I and go, well, like, okay, well, all you cartoonists that are you web cartoonists, you love business, clearly.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's sort of survivor's bias, because Brad and I and all the people that started 15, 20, 25 years ago that are still cartooning, we happen to be the ones that were somewhat capable at business, which in its way is its own survivor's bias. There were amazing cartoonists that we knew in our 20s or 30s that are no longer cartooning because they weren't able to tackle and handle all the business side of things. And so that's a downside to the business model in terms of, like, it does require you to have a certain acumen for business.
Yeah.
And I say that because there have been previous models that were very different. The syndicate model, once you got in, and let's just call it for what it was, once you got in, it was very hard to knock you out. In a way, you could coast, which is why people started to make fun of the sort of blasé, middle-of-the-road comic strips and punchlines, because it was really hard to get rid of them once they got in. You know what I mean? And that was a type of business model. And they could go golf and phone it in and have an assistant do all the work because, it was really hard to get rid of a comic strip like No Shoes for Tuesday once it got into newspapers. So, and different model for DC and Marvel. In those cases, you could blow up and be a huge hit for DC or for Marvel. But honestly, the truth was you had a lifespan of about 10 years on average. And then your style would move on, or they would rather move on from your style, and your career would fall apart. And so and then the Haight-Ashbury system, there was a whole other series of conditions that you would either explode or blow up your career based on good or bad things. What I'm saying is each system had its own failings. Ours happens to be that it requires you to wear many hats and have a sense of business acumen. And there were a lot of talented cartoonists that Brad and I knew that didn't make it because they weren't either willing or able to tackle those business tasks.
Yeah. And all of this brings me to kind of a conclusion, but before I do that, are there any others on your list that you want to share in terms of things that sometimes just get you down about being a web cartoonist?
Yeah, I will be honest that I, like a lot of cartoonists, have a shy, introverted side and an aspect to me. I have tried to fight it over the years, and I think I've succeeded by doing things like improv or sketch comedy or stand-up or theatrical stuff or a lot of public speaking or even things like this. And I've gotten better at it. I've sort of forced myself out of my shell. But another thing that I would say is hard for a lot of web cartoonists is that if they are shy or introverted, this job asks you to interact directly with a lot of people. And that's hard for a lot of people that just want to be like, no, I'm a very good cartoonist. I got into this because I was shy and introverted and I don't want to deal with people. And now to be a successful web cartoonist, I have to be somewhat extroverted or at least an ambivert. And so I would put that in the category of not great.
Yeah. And it's a challenge to try to continually do that. Once I can wrote all these down and looked at them, something really interesting popped out to me, and that is this: the worst parts of being a web cartoonist are often directly and inversely related to the best parts of being a web cartoonist. Right?
Oh, yes.
And it really came through like, yeah, you're your own boss. That's incredible freedom. It's also incredible pressure, right? The internet rewards consistency, but sometimes creativity isn't consistent, right?
Yeah, and sometimes creativity wants to be inconsistent, literally wants to be inconsistent, yes.
Freedom comes with responsibility. Direct access to readers, this thing that we've got, comes with direct exposure to criticism. Right?
And assholes,
Creative independence comes with business obligations. But once in other words, everything that we do, that's a superpower. Like the ability to be able to reach our readers directly has its own downside, has its own equal but opposite force that applies pressure in the other direction. You can't really understand how to be a independent comics artist without understanding how those trade-offs work. And once you do, then you can really build a career that protects the joy instead of slowly draining it. In other words, what I mean is every now and again, when let's go back to that, a reader that sends a nasty note or a nasty comment on Reddit, something we talked about a few shows ago. Once I frame that into its proper place, is that, yes, that's what comes with having a direct connection with our readers and the people that read our stuff. And that has way more benefits than it has downsides. I can frame that a little bit more usefully for myself, and it helps me get through the day. To say that all of these things that bring me down about webcomics are actually just the flip side of all these things that make me want to get out of bed every morning and race into the studio.
It's so true, yeah.
And work on the next thing that I'm working on.
And in a way, you have to choose joy because you have to choose to see the positive, optimistic, hey, this is a great opportunity angle rather than the, oh, this is drudgery, oh, this is responsibility, oh, this is anxiety angle. Because as Brad said, they are flip sides of the same coin. It's very much the thing that builds you up will be the thing that kills you in the end.
Yep.
This freedom, this responsibility, this joy of being your own boss is what will eventually kill us. But in the meantime, we'll see the opportunity that like we get to craft our own life. And how rare and wonderful is that in this world that we are the architects of the career that we have ahead of us. And so, yes, it's terrifying that I have to decide what my next 6 months, 6 years, 60 years is going to be. But it's also amazing that I get to decide what those time periods are going to be filled with. Like, I am not beholden to a boss, to a corporation, to an institution. I'm beholden to me. That's amazing. So I've got to choose joy when I see those responsibilities. You know?
It was. This question really helped me to frame that a little bit better. In that, instead of saying, "Oh, you know what," sometimes it's a real drag being a web cartoonist because, sometimes I find myself working through the weekend or working a lot during the weekend.
Right.
When instead of letting that sit all by itself, when I think of that as a part of a bigger structure where I said, yes, like you just said, being your own boss is great. I get to choose my own destiny. Sometimes that comes along with working some weekends, right? Then you put it into a bigger structure and it makes it a lot mentally. It makes it a lot easier to deal with those times when you are like, oh man, did I really make the best decision doing this? Was this a good idea? Instead of focusing on the bad, putting it in its proper place in an overall structure that includes good and bad is really helpful.
I'm about to talk about death, which I know makes some people anxious or not very happy. So I apologize ahead of time, but I'm framing this in a positive way, and because I want to say this out loud. We last week as a family had a family member that was taken from us very quickly, a distant relative, but suddenly and out of nowhere, right? And you of course reflect on what would you do if your life were to end very quickly, Brad, right? And one of the best parts about being a web cartoonist, and I want to say this out loud because I said it to my family, and I see it as an optimistic and positive thing to say, even though it's about death. If I were to die tomorrow, Brad, as a friend, I would want you to know I am happy. I lived a full life. I spent every day doing as much as I could with the things that I wanted to do. I loved being a web cartoonist. I loved creating. I loved being my own boss. Mm-hmm. So I see this as a tremendous positive that if at any point I'm taken, for myself, I'm okay with it because I spent every day honestly doing the best I could and to the best of my abilities and so I see that as a hallmark of a life well lived, that I'm okay if I'm taken tomorrow. You know what I mean? And so first of all, I'm sorry if that made you sad. I'm not trying to put that out there in a bad way. To me, it's an optimistic comment that yes, I want to live another 50, 60, 70 years, but if I go tomorrow, I'm okay because this has been a great run being a cartoonist in this fashion. Yeah,
I made it further than I ever thought I was going to make it. Tomorrow, if tomorrow comes, that's fine. I still had a great run. I've had exactly the same thoughts.
So it's, to me, just to counterbalance the idea of what's the worst parts of webcomics, I will say it has given me the best life I ever could have imagined. And I love it. I love this career. And I'm so grateful and thankful to both readers and to peers and professionals like Brad who have steered me in the right path over the years. And it's partially why we do this podcast, is that we want to pay it forward and send out to either younger cartoonists or people our same age or older starting their career path with whatever advice we can give them. And so moving on from this question, I will say an update, Brad, for people that would like to come hear us in person. We will be doing the NCS talk, by the way, in Columbus, Ohio, I think in a week or two now, based on when this show is coming out. So in Columbus, Ohio, go to nationalcartoonist.com. There is a $100 package where you can get all the talks and the cocktail hour, even if you are not a member of the NCS. You can come here, ComicLab Live. And we're also doing a completely free signing on Saturday. Is it August 8th, Brad? So I think the first one is on August 6th.
Yep.
The talk is on August 6th. The signing, and this is completely free signing, with all of your favorite cartoonists from North America are signing in Columbus at the Billy Ireland Museum and at the adjacent Mershon Auditorium, I think, which is literally right next door at Ohio State. Gang, you're really going to want to come out and see that. And also, for folks that are coming to WorldCon, but by the way, that first event is where Brad Geiger is going to be given his Silver Rubin Award. Fingers crossed, his Silver Rubin Award.
We'll see. We'll see.
Oh my God! Listen to that chest cold. I caught him off guard, gang.
I sound like a 3-pack a day smoker.
You do, but my heart goes out to you. I'm sorry about that. But that's the NCS weekend is where Brad Geiger is going to be given his Silver Rubin Award. And knock on wood, 2 weeks later, I will be clapping for someone who received the category award that I was nominated for in the Hugos. But just to mention, I will also be at the WorldCon in Anaheim a few weeks after that. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on ComicLab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
Fantastic. So, Dave, we've got another question that came in from patreon.com/ComicLab, and it goes like this. There's an unconfirmed rumor that that Marvel will be switching to all digital distribution via Webtoon by 2030. Okay. Now, we'll just underline right now, as far as anything I can find, this is unconfirmed. It's just gossip, right? But it opens up, number one, a thought process that you and I have talked about on this show in the past that I think we're going to circle around to. And it caused our question asker to have the following question. If the physical spaces shrink even further, I'm worried about only being able to sell via digital copies, Patreon, and wishing on the Kickstarter fairy to help me publish physical books. Are there any other avenues open to newcomers to comics? Yes, I know my comment sounds a little too much like an old man. Quote, back in my day, we bought comics from comic shops and we were thankful, unquote, attitude. I guess I'm learning to unlearn about 30 years of direct market nonsense. And sales-wise, I'm looking to see what potential future avenues I might be able to use that I don't know of yet. So we've got two issues on the table here. The potential, if Marvel stops printing floppies, then what? And number two, not only what's the effect for Marvel, but what's the effect for a person like our question asker coming into comics that saw themselves potentially being sold in comic shops. And now they're like, well, if I'm not being sold in a comic shop, this person calls it wishing on the Kickstarter fairy, beyond that, how do they get into publishing if these comic shops are going to start to recede as a result of not having Marvel comics to sell?
Yeah. So, boy, a lot to unpack here. First of all, I want to address the Disney and Marvel comment because, again, rumor, nothing substantial has been published at all about this. But Brad and I have put out this very opinion for the better part of 5 to 7 years, I would think, Brad, that Marvel would eventually just being like, shine it to floppy publishing, shine it to bookstores or comic book shops, rather. We bought Marvel not for its existing floppy business, but for the 30,000 characters that we can turn into video games, most movies, TV shows, Disney Plus things. And so to heck with any publishing of new floppies, of new material, who cares? I still hold that that's the long-term plan. I think they kept it going because maybe there was a little bit of juice left to squeeze from that lemon, but I don't know if there's much. Anyway, I have no idea if that's what Disney and Marvel are planning right now. I could see it on the horizon, absolutely, but I have no idea if it's actually happening, so there is that. The second part of this question asker is asking, okay, in the same way that a rising tide lifts all boats, does a receding tide, i.e. Marvel leaving comic book shops and giving up on floppies, and maybe even trade books, does that receding tide leave a lot of little boats on the shore for people that sell $500 to $5,000 worth of product to direct market comic book shops a year? Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. It absolutely does. I think both Brad and I have been screaming for the rooftops that is a dying business, and we're shocked, literally shocked that it's not already dead. Literally shocked that floppies are still being made, floppies are still being purchased at the way over the top price. Remember, the whole reason floppies existed once upon a time in a flourishing market, they cost pennies on the dollars for a kid to buy at any convenience store, comic book shop, grocery stores,
newsstand,
bookstores, newsstands, cigarette stands in New York and Chicago. Literally anywhere that their parents were walking to buy some small disposable, there was a spinner rack of comics. That's how this got started, right? But it was, again, dirt cheap. So the idea that someone would be paying for 32 pages, I don't even know what they go for these days, Brad. It's well over 5, right? At this point?
The last I checked out when my kids were small, and my kids are in their 20s now. And back then it was 5, upwards of 5.
Was it then?
So it's only gotten
7,
more
8
by then.
But my point being that the value proposition for what you get for 32 cheaply produced pages bound together by two staples and a somewhat glossy cover $7-8, whatever it is right now, it ain't worth it. Like you're not bringing in any new readers. The whole business model in terms of damage and returns and all that sort of stuff for the direct market, it was broken for years.
Yeah.
The actual direct market distributors are run on 30-year-old technology, and that whole market is inefficient. And oddly, it's amazing when you do get paid, if you get paid at all. Brad and I are shocked that it still works.
Yeah.
This is a point where, and it's rare where Dave Kellett does it, I'm going to give you some tough love.
Yeah.
Get the hell away from that business.
Yeah.
It's a train wreck. So the idea that you are still holding on to that, I get it, because in my 10s and 20s and 30s, I always wanted to be a syndicated newspaper cartoonist.
Yep.
It was the career that I fantasized about, dreamed about, wanted to do, had visions of being, me golfing with Mort Walker and,
of course.
and Charles Schultz. I don't know what I dreamed of in terms of golf, but I never played golf in my life.
Yeah.
So it was painful for me to make the transition to, okay, that path is no longer viable. So I will tell you, tough love as a friend. Comic book shops, that path is no longer viable. In the same way that we say that about a viable career about syndication, it is no longer viable. Don't walk down that path.
Yeah.
You can if you want to try it. You are pissing into the wind because it's going to bite you at some point.
Yeah.
And at some point is surprisingly short amount of time in the future. So don't go that path.
Yeah. And I'll back my friend up. Not only that, but this was a path that was never really open to you in the first place, right? You could have gotten your stuff into comic shops. I think it's probably harder now than it was back in the day when it was just Diamond and you could get picked up by Diamond. But be that as it may, this was never open to you, right? You might as well come to grips with that now and start working on those things that we've been talking about here on the show for 450 some episodes, right? Building your own business, all those things we talked about at the top of the show. And we'd be the first ones to tell you, sometimes they bring us down. It's not all roses and fairy dust, but it's your best option towards building a career and building any kind of financial stability. That Kickstarter fairy, it ain't a fairy. It's a very, very simple business model. And once you learn it and learn how to use it, once you put your mind to it today to start building your audience on your own, not through a comic shop, but on your own, that Kickstarter stuff, that Patreon stuff, it will start to come very naturally. And it's stuff that you can figure out. All this business stuff is like a skill, and you can learn skills, right? These are things that you can get better at as time goes by. I think I would it's in the same way that Dave had to grieve his syndication dreams. I think you need to grieve your comic book shop dreams.
Yes.
Get it behind you. Get it. Take 24 hours to really feel crummy about it. And then on the next day, pick yourself up, drop yourself off, and start working towards your new career. I can tell you, you've got way better chances of success than you would have had trying to get your stuff noticed in a comic shop without a Marvel flag or a DC flag on it. You have I'm telling you, those people walking into those comic shops are not looking for independent comics. They're looking for Marvel and DC and a few others, and not you. So grieve it, pout about it, get over it, and then start building your career.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said it in a shorter and concise way, which is grieve it. That's what I was trying to say with syndication, is that you do have to grieve it. Like, yes, but tough love, comic book shops, you do have to unlearn what you learned about them because they, I also, just as someone who in my 10s and 20s did enjoy occasionally going into a comic book shop, they weren't the greatest things anyway. So let's not make them overly romanticized. They all smelled like an armpit and depression. Only about 5 to 10% of them were incredibly well run. Most of them were kind of sad when you walked into them. Yes. And so let's not like we're giving up some great thing like, oh no, the National Gallery just burned down, or oh no, the Smithsonian or the British Museum just burned down. Yeah. I mean, a lot of them were like armpits in the weird parts of town that were not great. Yeah. And so anyway, Yes, you do. And the tough love moment is you do need to unlearn what you learned. That is not a viable business model.
Yeah.
And your description of, so what do I have left? Digital copies, Patreon, and wishing on the Kickstarter fairy? Yes, you just described 3 of the core legs that Brad and I have under our table for our businesses. And it's a valuable career. And I will tell you that Brad has been doing it for 15, 20 years. I've been doing it for 15, 20 years. It's working. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a very joy-filled process. I'm not beholden to Diamond. I'm not beholden to comic book shops. I'm not beholden to weird distribution rules that I hate in terms of damage or returns or pricing. It is a great direct artist to audience model. And yes, you should learn it and unlearn what you learned.
Well, I'll go one step further as we're wrapping this topic up. If you told me today that I'd have to give up Patreon and Kickstarter and running my own social media and so forth, you told me today I got to give that up, and instead you're gonna help me put my stuff out in comic book shops, right? Somebody comes up to me and says, "Let's from one of maybe not Diamond, let's say it's from one of the other newbies. They're gonna say, oh, we're gonna make it so easy for you, Brad. All you got to do is give up Patreon and Kickstarter, and we're gonna get you into every bookstore and every comic shop." I would. Speaking of, the day you die, you figure you had a full life. That would be my day. That would be that would be it. It would be all over. I wouldn't take that deal if you put a gun to my head.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you put forward this thought experiment. By the way, I never would have occurred to me to do this thought experiment. If I had to go the other way, and I'm directly addressing our question asker on this. If I had to go the other way and give up Patreon, digital sales, book sales, and Kickstarter sales direct to my audience, and had to go back to a distribution model that involved solely comic book shops, I would give up the ghost. It would be, I would hate it. And so let that be the evidence that this is the better way to do it. It is the comic book shop model was not an efficient model. It was not an effective model. It was not a profitable model. The way that Brad and I are trying to teach you and share with you the way to do it our way, or broadly speaking, the webcomics way, it is a more efficient, more profitable, more joy-filled, more actionable in the sense that if Brad pulls a lever, he sees the results of pulling that lever days or weeks later. If you pull a lever in the distribution model, you don't know if it had any impact at all. You don't know for months, and you don't know if it's repeatable because the whole system was hugely inefficient. And in the meantime, you're making a shit profit. So I guess what I'm saying is, akin to Brad's thought experiment, be joy-filled that this option exists. Be joy-filled that the other option is dying on the vine because it was an inefficient, ineffective, unprofitable for the most part business model. Run away from floppies and get on this digital hard copy Patreon and Kickstarter model because it works and it's effective and it's profitable.
Well said. Let's take time for one more question. This one comes into us from patreon.com/ComicLab, and it goes like this. My work tends to be serious and dramatic. So, to take a break from that feeling, I've been taking writing classes through the Second City and the Groundlings. Both have been extremely fun and even therapeutic.
Yeah.
The writing class for this semester has been canceled due to insufficient enrollment, so I signed up for Stand Up 1, I guess. This is the first level of stand-up comedy. Then he goes on to say, I'm a writer, not a performer. Being a long-time listener of this podcast, the both of you have natural and amazing performance chops. What advice do you have to get creatives out of their comfort zone?
First of all, congratulations, my friend. I'm excited for you. Groundlings, both as a performative teaching institution and for writing teaching institution, they do great work. I love the Groundlings. I have a dear friend who is in Groundlings currently, and they are great. I've also done Upright Citizens Brigade. I have not done, what was the other one that they mentioned?
Second City.
I have not done Second City, but I think they're mostly Chicago-based, so they don't have a presence in Los Angeles. But Second City is amazing, produced a bunch of SNL folks. I cannot recommend it enough. So I will just start with that. Congratulations, and I cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah.
So I will say, that the performative skills that you attribute to Brad and I, and thank you for the kind words, were not natural, just to put a point of order on that. Brad and I have had to work on that over the years. I think both Brad and I were kind of shyish kids growing up.
Very much so.
Maybe I should only speak for myself on that, but I was kind of a shyish kid. It is never a natural process to get up in front of 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people and talk. And so a public performance, public speaking, like anything in life, is a skill you have to work on. Some people are more naturally inclined, obviously, but I think both Brad and I have had to work at it. And if you listen to this podcast over the 10 years or so, you can see the progress in how we formulate our sentences and how we talk with each other, the give and take, and how we act. So yes, it can be improved. But also, let's get back to your specific question. Here's why I'm excited for you. Yes, the performative aspect of Groundlings, and specifically the stand-up, is going to be harder for you as probably an introverted person. But seeing how language is played with in a vocal delivery style, in front of people, with people, hearing the reactions to people and playing off those reactions is actually one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself as a writer. Because the words that we put down on a page, and I will include Brad and I on this one, both Brad and I put down on a page, are not the natural way people speak.
Right.
So anything you can do to remind yourself, to reinforce for yourself, to hear again how natural language works, it will improve your writing.
Yes, I had the same reaction when I taught storytelling class at University of the Arts. One of my favorite lectures started with this sentence: "If you want to learn how to tell a good story, learn how to tell a joke." Because all of the basics in storytelling is present in joke telling, just in a much more condensed version. It's all about tension and release. It's all about misdirection. It's all about surprise. It's all about subversion of thesis and so forth. All the things that you need to learn about in storytelling are present in joke telling and in humor. And it's also very telling, leaving comics just for a second, that you and I do, as opposed to like stand-up comics, leaving printed comics just for a second. Take a look at performance, people who do performance. Very often, you'll see some of the greatest comedians take a new turn, and all of a sudden, they'll do a dramatic role, and they will be astounding at it. Robin Williams, all of a sudden, who was Mork from Ork in the 70s, all of a sudden showed that he in movies like The Fisher King and I'm blanking, but he's
the one where he was the doctor. I
know
the one
where he's a teacher and they stand up on their desks.
Oh, sure. Yep. I forgot the name, but everyone knows it. Don't worry about it.
Two old men talk comedy.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, Robin Williams, who was knocking our socks off comedy, showed that he had the stones to do amazing drama. And you see this throughout. Lily Tomlin is another great example. Carol Burnett, another example. Very rarely do you see somebody who's a great dramatic actor turn to comedy and be good at it. You'll have to tell me whether Liam Neeson was good in his role in The Naked Gun.
He actually was delightful.
Bring myself to watch it, but very rarely is a dramatic actor able to do comedy. But comedy actors doing drama is a tale as old as time. So the fact that this writer who's writing our question is interested in learning comedy makes me very happy, very, very happy indeed. So now the question becomes, Dave Kellett of Los Angeles, California, what advice do you have to get a creative person outside of their comfort zone?
Well, the good news being you have already stepped outside your comfort zone. And so for that, I'm already applauding you and Brad's already applauding you. You didn't have to take this class and you did. And that's the first step is willingness to try. And both Brad and I at the moment have things on our drawing table and in our broader project list where we are trying it, not knowing if we're going to succeed, right? And so that's part of it, is just the willingness to try the thing, not knowing if it's going to work. A second one is cultivating an attitude. And this goes back to your central question of, how do you encourage risk-taking and that kind of thing? You have to cultivate an attitude that you will not be immediately good at the thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's part of the process. And one of the reasons I say that is I have been both blessed and cursed that some of the major aspects of my life, the first time I tried it, I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Enough such that I was encouraged to keep going at it. But there's been a few things, I would put maybe acting in there, maybe public speaking in there, where I was not immediately great at it. And it took a lot of continued effort to get good at it. And so you have to be willing to fail for a while.
Yes.
That's both instructive for your creativity, but it's also instructive for broader life, that you have to be willing to fail for a while and be bad at a thing. You got to suck for a while in order to get better. And so there is personalities out there, and you'll know it if you hear this. There are personalities out there that are like, I give up as soon as I suck at something. If I suck at something, I don't want to do it. Like if Dave Kellett got out on a hockey ice, I know I would suck at it, And so then it's a question of, am I willing to commit to getting better at hockey, or do I just say, shine it, I never want to be at hockey? So cultivate an attitude of like, no, I am going to suck at it, and that's okay. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
Because I want to get better at this, and it's important that I get better at this.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I tried stand-up back in 2012 when I first left the Daily News. My wife got me a class very similar to what this person's talking about, a stand-up class, because now all of a sudden I had time to do that kind of stuff. And it was like, oh, great, I'm going to go take a stand-up class. And very quickly, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it a lot. I really just dug sitting in that class talking about comedy, with other people who were interested in being funny. I really enjoyed that. And I had a couple of performances. The first one went well. The second one, I ate my lunch. It was not a great a timeout on the stage. But I could tell at that point, I was at a little bit of a crossroads, because I could tell if I focused on it, I could turn into a pretty good stand-up comedian. Not ever a great one. I don't think I was ever going to be that, but I could learn the skills to do this well. The problem was the amount of time that I would have spent learning that would have taken away from the things I needed to do in comics.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yep,
so
yep.
So then the question was, well, you going to do this again? And I'm like, no, I got it out of my system. I enjoyed it. It was great. But I could tell if I went down that road too far, it was going to be detrimental to me overall. In other words, at 2012, I had already spent more than a decade, close to 20 years, really, if you go all the way back, learning how to be a good cartoonist. And believe me, it took every minute of those 20 years to learn, and I hadn't gotten there yet. There's plenty of people lined up to tell you that I haven't gotten there still. But it took me a long time to learn what it meant for me to be a good cartoonist.
Right.
It was going to take as long to learn stand-up for me. You could tell. Yeah. And it was like, at that point, I had to make a decision where it was great to go outside of my comfort zone. But if I was going to continue, it was going to take me away from the things I needed to be doing in life. And so I was like, that was great. I loved it. Never doing it again because it was going to turn into a distraction. And so that's why when you and I talked about doing the show, doing this question on the show, I was a little bit reticent, because everybody says as a creative person, you need to get outside of your comfort zone. Getting outside of your comfort zone is great. And to a certain extent, that's true. Getting outside of your comfort zone has the unintended consequences sometimes of drawing you away from the stuff that was good about your comfort zone. You know what I mean? You need a comfort zone.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I want to encourage this. It's great. I want to hear all about this. But I do want you to just keep in the back of your mind, keep this boundary, keep a little boundary about it, and keep it contained because it can turn into a shiny object.
Yep.
And I'll tell on myself, there was a little bit of time I got a little bit of success on TikTok. And for a while, I was doing TikTok videos every other day and posting them. But it took like an hour to 3 hours to perform them and to edit them and put them up. And meanwhile, I'm getting further and further behind on my schedule as a cartoonist. It was getting harder and harder to do the stuff that I actually needed to do. And I had to finally have a talk with the man in the mirror and say, hey, this is dumb. This is really dumb. And you are not a TikTok star. You are our cartoonist. That's the thing. By the way, dummy, I said, that's the thing you wanted to be. You didn't grow up wanting to be a TikTok star. You grew up wanting to be a cartoonist. So get back to the comics. And that's exactly what I did. It was a good experience, but it had a danger of pulling me away from my center. That's the only thing I want to put in the back of your head about this comfort zone conversation.
Yeah. And put it a different way, because I 100% agree with Brad's advice, is don't let these creative experiments and dipping a toe in different waters, don't let them become a shiny object that pulls you away from your core project.
Yeah.
Use them, as Brad did with stand-up, as an instructive experience to try a thing, fail at a thing, learn from a thing, get a little bit better at a thing.
Yeah.
Bring all the learnings back to your core task, which is to be a better cartoonist. So I had some, and just so you don't tell a story about yourself that's false, Brad, you did everything that you needed to do in stand-up to learn from it, get better at it, take it back to your cartooning. And that's what I think our question asker is going to do too, is that they're going to dip a toe, try it out, get better at it, learn from it, bring it back. I had the same kind of thing with Stripped in the sense that, like, I could have gone on to make more movies. Like, a good friend of mine who's a film director is like, what's the next one? What's the next one? I was like, Phil, I'm going back to cartooning. He's like, what? You know how to make a movie now? And I was like, yeah, I know. But it's like, it took me 4.5 years and I had to give up my cartooning, Brad, as you remember, in the last year. So to Brad's point, you don't want to let the fun, courageous side creative thing that you're doing so pull you away that the shiny object then becomes your core task. That's not the point of why you're doing it. You're doing it because it expands on your skill set, it expands on your abilities, expands on your abilities to understand the human experience, and then you bring that back to your cartooning, and that's your core task.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because we have a core task as well, and it's done for another week. So I get to say that you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my handsome friend, Brad Geiger, the editor of Webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, who is also Silver Rubin nominated. Didn't forget this week. I've been forgetting every week, and by God, I'm not going to forget this week. Nominated, and rightly so, for a Silver Rubin from the National Cartoonist Society.
I was going to do one of my subliminal whispers there, but you beat me to it. And my friend, the Hugo-nominated Dave Kellett, co-director of the comics documentary Stripped and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
Silver Rubin nominated. That's my... And the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode and all episodes was edited by the ever-wonderful, ever-whimsical Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media. Did you hold whimsical a little longer than normal on that one?
Matt's been putting a little bit of juice on those, so I'm giving him a little bit more to work with now. I want to see what he can do.
I appreciate the sort of 1970s sparkle he puts on it for your voice. It's great,
If you love ComicLab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, 5-star, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
Share your thoughts on today's episodes over at the ComicLab Confab line at 1-609-379-3520, and we may play your message on a future episode.
Make plans to see ComicLab live at the NCS Conference and Rubin Awards August 6th through the 8th in Columbus, Ohio. If you're listening to this show, you better get in your car. It's time to go. We're already doing our live show. Go to National Cartoonists patreon.com for details.
And ComicLab is made possible by your support at patreon.com/ComicLab. So we will go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/bringing people together.
Yeah, congratulations. And now, broadcasting live from the hallowed halls of Oxford University, where the air is thick with old leather and academic rigor, it's time for the histories of sequential art with our esteemed guest professor, Dr. Reginald Wigglesby.
Lickety boo, old boy. Chip, Chip, it's always a delight to receive a call from Colonel Geiger of His Majesty's 3rd Mounted Regiment. So pip, pip, and what ho, Colonel Geiger.
Well,
what is today's comics query? Thank you for asking while I finished my sentence.
I've got a question for you today.
Do you mind if I talk over you as well, since that's all right?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. That's just a little bit of hard cheese.
Who am I? I'm Brad Geiger. I'm just going to talk right over you. That's fine. Don't mind the script that we have in front of us. That's okay. No problem there.
Dr. Wigglesby, today's question is about alley-oop. Now, as you know, on this date in history, alley-oop made a shift in its storytelling to where the strip's dominant theme became historical and science fiction exploration. Alley-oop was frequently transported to various eras and settings, interacting with historical and mythical figures like Cleopatra, King Arthur, Ulysses, and Robin Hood, or even traveling into outer space to Venus and the moon. My question for you is, why?
Bradley, I'll be honest with you. I have studied sequential art for nigh over 65 years. I hold 2 doctorates, one from Oxford and one from the University of Toronto in sequential art.
Yeah.
And I must admit, not a single goddamn person knows why alley-oop does a single thing he does. That comic strip does not make a lick of sense to anyone. It's a caveman, if I have my facts correct.
A caveman, yes.
Traveling through time, solving crimes, figuring out mysteries, going into the future, the past, and sometimes even into myth. Brad, I put it to you, it is possible, perhaps, to create a comic strip while fully on mushrooms, based on the evidence that we see from alley-oop.